All right, so Eli and I wanted just to get everyone together. We've been talking a lot to our agents to get their offers accepted.
Yeah.
You know, we're hearing a lot of bidding wars going on. Ooh, crazy offers being offered. I just heard of one that was 100,000 above the list price.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's important to us is that we give you guys tools to get those offers accepted. We really want you guys to be positioned to win. And so we've seen some things that are working for people, and we just want to go over that.
Absolutely. So recently, someone just told me, actually, it was this morning, I think, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this morning, they said that they heard about someone offering a year of Netflix subscriptions. I'm not kidding.
Well, whatever it takes, right?
You know, and so, of course, that gets a little tricky. Lenders in the house, you know, can attest to this. You know, we got to be really careful with personal property that's being transferred to sale. But what the point is that people are getting really creative because there's so much competition. It's starting to get a little bit stressful, I think, for some folks. And so us as professionals, we need to figure out how we can guide them to make a good decision, to make the best possible offer in hopes to get them accepted, right? So,
right. So part of what we want to look at is, of course, price, right? Price is something that we're having to have conversations with buyers on. Really don't pay attention to the list price. What you're seeing on MLS is simply a marketing strategy that the listing agent and seller came up with to attract the most amount of buyers.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at trying and working to price and offer, well, again, those 100,000 above asking, we're really encouraging guys to look at the pending sales more than the solds and talk to the listing agent. Now that's challenging to do because, I'm sorry, I'm gonna let people in.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be watching out when she's talking.
Fail. Eli's fired.
I'm on it.
All right, so, which is challenging to do sometimes with getting the listing agent, right? Have you guys, those that are active working with buyers, getting that listing agent on the phone is ideal, and asking what's most important to the seller, I think is a very good opening question.
Yeah, that's a fantastic, yes, because believe it or not, some of us, I mean, I've been in the business 20 something years, you've been in the business 18 years. And sometimes we think a quick close is most important, but that's not always the case. Oh, I can close it in 14 days. I can close it in 10 days, 17 days. But what if that seller needs time to find a replacement property? That's possibly more important than a fast close, what we would traditionally think is super important.
Right.
Like, my offer's awesome, I can close in 10 days. Well, not if the seller needs more time to do the search for their new replacement home. So finding out and asking those questions is so important. The other thing that we're seeing a lot is seller to remain in possession, right? So that's where they get a lease to remain in the property, or a license, excuse me, to remain in the property for a set amount of time. And we're seeing a lot of those where they're offering free, that period of time for free, right? Yeah. And so the point, I guess, to follow up with what Amber's saying is we need to find out what is the most important thing to these sellers. And is there anybody on there? And by the way, if you're on Zoom, we would love for you
to participate. Yeah. We really don't want to just talk to the screen.
Yeah.
So
we want to have a conversation about this, and we can learn from each other's experiences, right? So let's definitely pool and collaborate. And I mean, what are you seeing as far as, are you being able to get a hold of the listing agents? Anybody online or in the room?
I haven't had any issues getting a hold of the listing.
No issues. That's great. Good to hear. That's good to hear. Awesome. They're picking up their phone, or they're texting, or how are you doing it?
Texting.
Texting.
Okay. Actually say they prefer text. So I look at the MLS and I look at the confidential remarks because I need it when an agent calls me, when I have it specifically in the MLS that says a certain thing like I prefer text, and then they call. You know what I mean? So I double check and see what the listing agent, if they've said anything, and I try to follow that.
That's great.
Yeah. That is great advice. So Mariah just said you look at those confidential agent remarks. If you're not paying attention to the listing agent's instructions, which really are seller instructions as well, you're telling the seller and the listing agent that you're not paying attention, and that's a little bit of how you're going to operate through the transaction. So that's a warning sign to listing agents of, oh man, they didn't even look at the confidential agent remarks.
Are they going to be in the transaction?
Right, exactly. I mean, one of the things, I know that we're like in a hurry or in a rush because, oh, this just hit the market and we want to get an offer in quick. So we just want to go show it real fast. But in doing so, we do exactly what Amber's talking about and Mariah's talking about, that we kind of start off on the wrong foot with that listing agent, right? Because I think about it like you put in there, set up a Calendly appointment or a showing time, send this and this, send me a text. And then there you are calling and like, why aren't they picking up the phone? And I get that we need to be on the phone and talk, but last year, one of my listings, I probably had 65 calls in one day.
Right.
I could not field all the calls, guys, okay? There's just no way I could field all the phone calls and the text and the emails. So we have to give grace to each other, find out the best way to communicate with that listing agent, right? So.
Yeah, and Carol says, yes, make a call and text with every offer. Yes, so following whatever the listing agent has instructed us to do, that's a great start.
Yes.
I want to take us back before making the offer and making sure that you guys are setting your buyers up for success with a great lender partner.
Yeah, so important.
So that is so critical that you have a great lender on the team, because those are some of the areas we see the deals fall apart. One of the things we encourage you guys to do is talk to your loan officers about getting that file underwritten, partially underwritten on the front side. Some will go all the way through underwriting.
Yeah, some do. Yeah.
And that is the most solid type of approval. It's not just a pre-approval. What happens when a buyer calls the loan officer and it's a phone call and they say, yeah, Karen, I make $10,000 a month and I have all this money in the bank and I had the job for 2 years, and they give it all verbally over the phone, but Karen hasn't verified the tax returns, the checks. What if that paycheck comes over and 8,000 of that is in commissions and 2,000 is their salary? The lender is going to look at that type of income documentation differently as if it was $10,000 a month. Right, Karen?
Yeah.
She's shaking her head.
Yes, she's saying yes.
So making sure that you as the agent, if it's not your preferred lender, call the loan officer, ask, did you check the buyer's income documentation? Have you verified assets? Has the underwriter put their eyes on this documentation?
Yeah.
Because when they have done all that front work, when you go ready to write the offer, you can then remove loan contingency. You're more solid on appraisal contingency being removed. Those types of things are important.
Yeah.
So we can write a strong offer.
Yep.
Because what we're seeing on the contingencies right now, go ahead and talk a little bit about what people are doing in that area.
So in contingencies, we're seeing a lot of people with no contingencies at all. Now, as a buyer's representative, if you represented buyers in the past, one of our primary jobs is to protect our client, right? And so it feels almost counterintuitive or contradictory to say, hey, we're not going to have any contingencies at all. No loan, no appraisal, no inspections. Because then, well, if you inspect that property and there's something major wrong in that property, you have very little leverage, if any, right? And your deposit's in jeopardy. Same thing with the loan approval. Same thing with the appraised value if it comes in short. But the truth of the matter is, with the low inventory we have, I think we have less than a month now of inventory. It's crazy. And I was looking at a graph yesterday of 12-month window and how the inventory's just dropped almost every month. And then the sales have increased, which is depleting the inventory. So the more houses we sell and close, the lower the inventory gets. And so that's a really, you have to be very careful with that. You got to inform your client, hey, this is what this means. If we remove the appraisal contingency, that means we're committing to pay the price no matter what. Do you have the funds to do that? And in some cases, and Karen's on this call, she can contest that attest to it, that some people, first-time buyers, just don't have that extra money. And so what you're really doing is saying, okay, if we go for this, there's a good likelihood you could, right? If the seller wanted to take your deposit. Now, and just so we all know, sellers get to opt to do that. It's not automatic. It's something that happens, but we have the conversation in such a way where our buyers know that this is what's happening out there. And if there's anybody on this Zoom that can kind of confirm too what I'm saying or give any feedback, that would be great, or in the room, that this is happening more and more and more.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
having that loan approval makes you feel more comfort, because I can go to Karen and say, Karen, okay, how solid of a deal is this? I mean, we're approved, we're underwritten. I mean, are we 100%? Are we 90%? Are we kind of, we're not sure?
Right,
You
because
know?
we need to limit the buyer's risk as much as possible, or
Yeah.
at least make them aware of the risk that they are taking.
Yeah.
There is risk with removing all contingencies. Go ahead, Karen.
And like Eli and I had talked about one time also is you can run it automated, because you don't always get appraisal waivers, but you can, if you have an address before they make the offer, run it automated and see if you get the appraisal waiver, so that it makes it easier for the client to take the appraisal contingency off.
That's a great
tip.
Great points, yes. And one of the things is, that's the thing, and I think a lot of agents don't know this, right? But you can call your lender, you can call Karen and say, Karen, here's the property address, we're thinking about making this offer, can you run it real quick? An appraisal waiver essentially means the lender's not going to require an appraisal. Now,
Means you can then remove your appraisal contingency, thus
Right.
making you a stronger offer.
correct, yep.
If
Thank
you
you,
don't,
Karen.
yeah, thank you. That was great. This is exactly what we're looking for today, is these kinds of tips so
Yeah.
that you guys can win that bidding war.
Yeah,
So
Can I break in for a minute?
Carol?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back even farther than what you guys are going back. And mine is, and I have an example, making sure that when you write your offer, that it's as clean as possible.
yeah,
And that you have it filled out as much information as you can. I'm currently right now in negotiations with a sale because I wrote such a clean offer. And the
Yeah.
listing agent called me to tell me that that's why we're in negotiations, is because of the clean offer. He had 10 other offers on this, but
job,
he said,
Carol.
your offer is so clean and easy,
Mm-hmm.
it made it appealing to the seller to, accept it or to go into negotiations with you. Because he said some of the other contracts were not even completed.
Yeah, and we are seeing that a lot. And
Yeah.
so if you're a newer agent, then you're going to be working with me, and I'll be checking all of those, because it does make a difference on having it fully completed, having the
Yes.
listing agent information all filled out. If it's not, and they have, right now we're seeing like 50 offers on a property, yours is going right to the bottom of the pile.
yeah,
So
yep,
filling that out, understanding all of those contingencies. One of the things that we're advising is to up your initial deposit. When a buyer goes to buy a home, they're going to have at least 6% out, usually between the down payment and closing costs, 6% of the purchase price
Mhm.
out by the end of the deal. So one way you can make your deal stronger without costing your buyer any more money is to make that initial deposit 2 or 3%. So if that's a $300,000 offer you're making and it's 2%, that's $6,000 initial deposit, or $9,000. So what that means is within 2 days, they changed the timing on me. I'm pretty sure it's 2 days in your contract that you need to get that initial deposit over to the title.
nice, that's for company, yeah.
Might be 3 days.
Might be three, I think it might be.
It is in the contract.
Yes,
And that deposit goes over to title, comes out of the buyer's account. The contract is defaulted to wire. If your buyer is not going to wire, put buyer's choice under other terms.
yeah,
Those are the little details in a contract that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Above 3% is not advised, because it's not protected in your liquidated damages clause. Up to 3% is.
yeah.
And it just gets the money over, sitting at title out of your buyer's bank account, so they can't spend it on anything while you're in escrow anyways, and it makes it a lot more solid.
Yeah. And one of the things you, of course, just as we mentioned before, if you're removing contingencies and you're having the discussion of higher deposit to make your offer more aggressive, make sure you're really talking about that, because that's the money that's at jeopardy if there's no contingencies, right?
Or if
So as a
the
reminder.
seller chooses to keep that, like if you're gonna cancel and you don't have the right to cancel, then that's where things become where we would need to get legal advice on if the buyer's deposit is at risk. There's always a potential, and
Always,
that's what we want to talk to the buyer about.
Yeah.
Should you cancel, there is a potential that if seller has damages, part or all of this may be at risk.
Yeah.
We don't know because we're not actually the attorney, the mediator. We don't know all the details that led up to the cancellation. There's a lot of details.
So many nuances, yeah.
But
It's
that's
crazy.
why we have to have that language though up front and preparing them of what they are getting into. Because this market is like no other market I've seen for buyers.
No, and here's another thing. We were talking about the lenders, right, and getting approvals. When you submit your offer, submit proof of funds
Yes.
with the offer. That's proof of funds is like a copy of their bank statement, and just black out the account numbers, okay? And your lender or your borrower can get that to you. Typically, the lender has to ask the borrower for permission to send that over. But if you're doing this where you're communicating really well with the group, and I highly recommend that. We highly recommend that, because that's going to help you when you go talk to the listing agent. Your lender's on the same page as you are. Everybody's talking the same way. That listing agent feels even more confident about your offer,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
Imagine if you were the seller sitting there looking at all these offers and one came across with this really clean offer like Carol was talking about. All the contingencies were removed. You had a great lender partner that was CC'd on that offer that went over.
Mhm.
You have a solid
Yep.
approval
Solid approval letter.
from your lender partner.
Yeah.
Proof of
Yeah.
funds
Let
attached.
me call you back.
The seller's.
Let me call you back.
All right.
And then I was just thinking, last year, my team wrote an offer, and we've done it a few times actually, where everything on page 2 of that RPA, or is it page 3? It's page 3.
Yeah.
Bottom of page 2, page 3, we're all on the buyer's side,
The allocation of costs.
which is
So-
not standard for our area.
Right.
And we need to try to make our offer more aggressive. So I paid for the home warranty, our team did. We paid for the owner's title policy, the transfer tax, the escrow fee, the NHD. We took all those costs on our side, right? Again, another way to help win the bidding war is take costs away from the seller. Anything
Yeah.
that's gonna help just squeak you above that other offer. Because you can have an offer for 400 grand, I can have an offer for 400 grand. But if my page 3 of my RPA is buyer, 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 my offer is net higher,
Yep.
right?
And it's
So,
all about the net.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what offer is gonna net the seller more and
Yeah.
make their life as easy and as seamless as possible as they transition out of this home into their next one. And so what we've talked about so far is really standard real estate, skill-based contract
yeah,
things.
yeah.
What I'd like to move into is some creative things that we've seen that are coming across, like Eli talked about, the Netflix account.
Yeah.
Well, that's a first for me.
That was
However,
the first for me too.
I have seen moving costs.
Yeah, it'll be costs.
I had an agent write buyer to cover $2,000 of seller's moving expenses. So that could be the moving truck if they wanted to hire movers. So that was written into the contract.
Now, Karen, can you speak to that? If we put that in the contract, is there any impact in underwriting that we should be aware of?
If you pay for the movers,
Yeah,
that could arise because it's a credit of some sort. And so you need to make sure that it's not going towards closing costs. You're going to have to put the invoice into title and pay it through title so that everything's written down. And you need to make sure that you keep the credits down, which in this case we
Right.
are, because there are no seller credits right now. But we just need to get the invoices and make sure everything is tidy that way.
Right, so we want to be letting our lender know what our like what we're writing.
Our plan is, yeah.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
we don't
Yep.
get any hot water there. And I'm seeing moving cost, 2,000 was the most I've seen. I've seen $250 towards the moving truck. Another thing is to have the seller's house clean. You don't have to clean it, just move your furniture out. We as the buyer's agent will come in, hire a cleaner. You don't have to worry about leaving this place clean because we'll clean it for our clients.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're seeing that.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other things you can think about too is when you're, just to kind of go back to the appraisal thing, I wanted to mention this earlier and I forgot, so I'm just going to insert it real quick, is when you go to look at the value and the price you're going to offer for your client, you really have two types of value. When I teach on this, it's always two types of value. You have the appraised value, which is what the lender and the appraiser are going to say it's worth. And then there's the market value. The market is what the market says it's worth. And it's true of an up market and it's true of a down market. In other words, you can come to me in a down market like in 2007 and 8, and you can tell me my house is worth 300 grand. And I'll say to you, it is based on the comparables. Because remember, comparables are up to 6 months back. So yes, 4 or 5 months ago it was, and no buyer's willing to pay over 285 for it right now. And that's the market value. The inverse is true as well in an up market. Your value based in comps, you as a buyer might say, but Zillow says it's worth 380. I look at the sale around the corner, it's worth 390. Why are you wanting 420? Or why are you suggesting 420, 430, Eli? And then I'll say, well, the market is calling for that because we're seeing over and over and over sales that are going above list 30, 40, 50,000. I mean, last year I lost one 100 grand over, by the way. I offered 50,000 over for my client on the property, and I called the agent after it closed and checked it. 100 grand over is what it ended up at. So when I told my client, he was like, 50 grand, that's crazy. He was so nervous, so scared. He's like, but that's crazy. It doesn't even make sense. And I go, yeah, I know. It doesn't. Right? So you have to have that conversation too. I just remember to talk about that.
Absolutely. And one of the things, so there's a few things that you can do to help show the buyers the data. So within MLS, if you pull up all of the sales around the listing, you can show them that there were 9 other offers on the properties. 20 other offers is in under the pending. Now we have to put in how many offers were received on that listing.
Which is cool.
So when I'm having a conversation with a buyer, I say, I understand that the list price is 300,000, and I can show you these 3 houses right around that just went pending. They had 9 offers, 20 offers. That means there's 27 other people in this neighborhood that are making offers on this style of property.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we need to do a little guesswork and put your best foot forward. The offer that you would be so comfortable with going to sleep and losing the house. That's what I need you to think of.
That's the script right there to tell your clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you can show them the data. It's not me that makes the market.
Right.
And I want to be really upfront with you so that we don't get into a situation later that you regret, like you didn't put all of your chips on the table. Because that's what it takes to get the offers accepted today.
Yeah.
Another tool, which I'll show you guys in detail on this, it's the CMA, the 1-page CMA, that 1-page report. On the right-hand side on the solds, it goes the list price to the sold price and shows you the percentage. To show the buyers what percentage they're going above in the neighborhood that you're looking. Again, let the data do the heavy lifting.
Right. 100%. And days on market, just real quick, when you're looking at the data and days on market was 6 days, 3 days, 10 days or less, that means it sold fast and likely over the list price. So if you're seeing things that are going longer, okay, maybe not. But if they're short like that, that's a telltale sign that it sold for over list.
All right, so those are a lot of the things that we wanted to cover. There's one more last tip that I'm gonna give.
I have one too.
Oh, okay, so we'll do our final tips and then we'll open it up to some questions. So Mine is to send a video over with your offer. So making sure that you stand out, because right now these offers are coming over in an email, bullet pointing the terms of the offer. And when we removed sending over those mushy gushy buyer love letters to the seller, because we're not sending over those letters due to the fair housing laws, we lost a little bit of our leverage there in being able to position our buyers.
Correct. Yeah.
So replace it with a video that shows in the email, and it's you talking to the agent about how you operate, the work that you've done with your buyer. You know, I prep my buyer. We're not going to be asking for repairs. They're solidly qualified. They've gone through underwriting. They're working with a top-notch lender. All of the details, everything that you've done to that point. And I'm really excited to work with you and your seller and make this as seamless as possible as we transition our clients into the next stage of their life. If you have any questions, the seller has any points in negotiation, please call me because we want to work this deal out. And that's your video.
Be careful not to mention any of the fair housing
Yes.
stuff, okay?
It's about you and
It's, yes, correct. So just to reiterate that, my final tip is this. Even though a lot of houses are selling fast, okay, and it's true, there's still some that are remaining on the market. So one of the things that we would do is I would set up a client portal search that what's that other one called?
hot sheet.
A hot sheet search, where I looked every day at what's on the market once it hit 15 days on the market and no one had made an offer. And I grab those and say, do they fit any of my clients? Because that means 2 weekends have gone by and they haven't got an offer yet. So there is a possibility there to maybe make an offer that's slightly lower or at least just at list price and typically with less competition. The other thing is keep an eye on MLS on the front page. You have a back on market tab. Click that every day to see what maybe something you saw where there was 20, you can get it. And when it hits back on the market, be ready to go. And then my last tip of this is 3 tips in one is to, if you have houses that your client loved, showed it to them, didn't get it, call that agent every few days. How's it going? Just checking in. Text, just checking in. We're still searching. Love your home. We made an offer. Because you will be surprised when that agent is getting maybe some pushback from the buyer's agents currently in the property, and they go, you know what? They start talking to themselves. We have this other, Mariah's been calling me, and their clients were really sharp too. And this buyer's given us an issue. Why don't we consider switching and it's canceling this one because we can't come to terms? And boom, Mariah gets the call. That's how that works.
Yeah.
So we have to be a little extra diligent as the buyer's representative to get them into a house, right, and win. So there it is.
Awesome. Those were all great tips.
All 3.
So we really want to be able to give you guys some feedback or some tips today, and we would love feedback from you guys on what you heard, what you learned, and maybe something that you might implement to get your buyers into contract. So I'm going to open it up to all of you.
Where you have talked about the 2 different values, the appraised value and the market value, because I can explain that to my clients. And then letting the data doing the heavy lifting. It's like, okay, I want you to make your highest and best offer. And like you said, if we don't get it, then we know we did all we could do to get it.
Yes, love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you for sharing. Love it. Anybody else in the room or on Zoom? Unmute.
Can you talk a little bit about putting a statement in the RPA about the buyer paying X amount of dollars over appraised value and what that means? So if you have a really high offer, let's say it's, I don't know, it's $500,000 offer and the home appraises at $475,000 and you have that statement up to $5,000, what happens at 480? Does the seller come down? How is that negotiated?
So usually it's for when the appraisal is going to come in lower.
Lower, right.
is you're saying, you know,
So if it appraises at 475,000 and my client has a statement, in the RPA saying that we'll cover up to $5,000 over the appraised value, yet our offer was 500 originally. So if we went into contract at 500,000 and the home appraises at 475,000.
yeah, and you had the $5,000 above, your buyer would essentially be paying 480, $5,000 in cash.
Exactly, but the seller has to be willing to come down to 40.
Down, correct.
Yes, and they still can decide to or not to. It's up to them.
Yeah, and we're seeing that is being negotiated in the beginning, and then I'm seeing it renegotiated, even though they said, oh yeah, we'll pay $10,000 above appraisal. When they really get to it,
Yeah.
they're like, ooh, that's gonna hurt, and they wanna cancel. So
Yep,
you
yep.
do everything that you can with the intention in the beginning of moving forward and having that gap, knowing that it could still open for negotiations later.
And I want to encourage you all to add the verbiage of up to the agreed upon sales price.
Yes.
So I'm willing to pay 5,000 above the appraised value up to a maximum of the agreed upon sales price. Because
Hey guys, I got a question for you on that topic, because I'm going through this right now. So in my contract, we wrote $5,000 finally agreed on $7,500 above the appraised value. Seller agreed to that, not to exceed our original offer price of $360. So when the appraisal comes in, let's say at $350, we reduce the price on an addendum to $357.5, send over a copy of the appraisal, and the seller has to acknowledge that, but haven't they already agreed to the $7,500? So it's basically just a formality?
Right.
Okay. What happens if the seller says, no, I decide not to?
Yeah, that can always happen,
that can happen.
right? And so
Right.
we go back to the contract. This is where you agreed, you accepted, and that's where it can get squirrely and you end up in court.
Okay.
They'll say, well, I didn't.
Seller's in breach of contract.
Yeah, that's if you wanted to take it down that path, that's where you're going. And at the end of the day, you really want to make it a win to not get into court. That's where we are seeing, yeah, I know that it was agreed upon that 7,500. And there's still a lot of emotion when it actually, they're having to pay that much.
Cool. Sellers having to lose that much.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So the
Cool.
same.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And this is what makes real estate so fun, because the
yeah.
strategy and also looking at the wording in the contract,
Get some chat comments.
because that is what is going to be the guiding factor. What does the contract say and what was the intent when the
Yeah.
contract was written?
So can we touch on inspection clauses, inspection contingency as well?
Yeah.
Because,
And
I had one recently that contingency was removed, and then I was hit with $4,300 in repair requests.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell?
It's a lot the same as that same mindset of, they intended at the beginning to not do for repairs, to not do inspections. They were waiving all of their inspections, saying that we're not going to ask for any repairs. And then they did all their inspections and found a lot and then asked for repairs anyways. Now, I know you had multiple offers on that property, and seller was like, no way, we're not giving repairs. We negotiated this in the beginning, and they were intending to cancel and go into contract with someone else.
That's right.
Do that. Don't do a bait and switch. Have that conversation with your buyers of, we in the beginning asked or told them we were not asking for anything. At the end of the day, we do have to act on our client's behalf and do what they are asking us to do.
Yeah.
We need to, though, have those conversations and be very direct and let them know that most likely the seller is going to cancel. And they are within their rights to do that.
And just to add to that, you can, because when the buyer does push back, because it'll happen, trust me. So you're going to say, hey, we agreed to take this as is, no inspection contingency. The buyers will sometimes push back, even though we tell them very plainly, hey, we could lose the transaction. In that instance, yes, absolutely, Amber, we got to do what the client's asking, and we don't want them to feel like we're not on their side. So be very careful with how you talk to them about that, or they could start to feel like, what, you're not even on my side, you're not even trying to protect me, right? And so in that instance, you call the listing agent, you let them know what's happening. Hey, just see what you can do, please. It was more than we thought it was gonna be. That's why we're asking. I know we said we weren't gonna ask, but it became so much that we may need to, I don't know, figure something else out, right? And then the listing agent thinking, if I'm a listing agent, I'm thinking, what? So now what are you gonna cancel if I don't do these repairs, right? And it's really just a conversation to try to find a win-win solution for everybody, but that can definitely happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing as with the appraised value situation, right? If it comes in a lot lower than the seller anticipated, they may not like that, or the buyer, either side. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Hypothetically, could you, set a limit on the inspection, like, okay, any repairs over $10,000, we'll send it that point. If that was the scenario that.
It is possible that you can do that up front. Yeah, what's,
Hey, Amber, what was that? What was the question? We couldn't hear that.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he asked, can you negotiate the amount of repairs up front?
Basically, yeah.
And you can, not common in how we do the real estate contract.
But it is something you can do. Yeah.
And then, let's see,
Monica had a question. Yeah.
Monica,
If I have a buyer pre-approved for 400,000 and they don't have a lot of cash, what price point should we basically be looking at now?
okay,
I'm gonna say
450.
460 at the most, 450 probably. 450, 460 to give you that leadway to make that higher offer.
Yeah, or look
Monica.
at some of that aged inventory for them and they
Aged
can
inventory,
go
yep.
higher to what they're approved for. But that was a great question, Monica. If they're approved for 500, where should you be shopping? Because everything listed at 500 is gonna go for 600.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, so you have to have that expectation conversation with the buyer, so they're looking at the right price point. Because the lender just told them, I'm qualified to 500, great, and they're looking at stuff that's 490, 505, 510, 515. No, that's not the kind of market we're in right now. So we want to have that conversation before they really go get excited about house and start sending them to you, because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know? Yeah.
And those buyer consultations in the beginning, this is where you have those conversations, set the expectations, go over the market that we're in, and make sure that you're setting your buyers up for success. If Eli and I can help at all in your strategies, on your offers, don't hesitate to call us. We love having these conversations.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we would love to hear 2 ahas,
Yes, 2 ahas.
something you guys learned today.
Well, Jennifer said the video clean offer, just asked my lender for proof of funds to send with our next offer.
Perfect.
That was her aha. Thank you, Jennifer. Who else?
Monica, thank you. How do you go about the conversation with them? You read my mind. You're very welcome, Monica. All right. We trust you guys took a lot away today, and we're going to be continuing to do these mini masterminds. So we'll make sure that you guys get the topics. If there's any topic you would like, let us know, because we want to have relevant content that is helpful for you guys. All right.
Definitely.
So anything you want to close out with?
Don't give up. Don't surrender. It's okay if you end up making 9 offers. Tell your client ahead of time. That could be a possibility right now. And you still might get the first one you make, right? And one last thing is, as you get to that point where they start to get a little bit frustrated, because it's going to happen possibly, hopefully not, but if it does, start really honing in on the on-market days on market data to try to find them something that might not fit exactly what they're looking for, but at that point, they will consider it again. Case in point, I had someone last year was looking for a 4-bedroom. They adamantly said no 3 bedrooms at all. After 12 offers on 12 houses that we lost, and they were all fantastic offers, they got a 3-2. See, so there it is. Okay.
Awesome job, you guys. Thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to seeing you in the Market Center and out in the market. Let us know if we can help at all.
Have a blessed day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.